Alright, what's going on, everybody? This is your host, Arctic Ghost, and welcome back to another episode of the Arctic Pauper Show. This time around, I'm bringing you Domain Zoo, basically, is what it is, or Five Color Zoo. Uh, it's basically just a five-color aggro deck that, plays like kind of how the old extended version of it played with, Kurdace, Wild Nicottles, Tribal Flames. This is the big card we're taking advantage of. And then the card that lets it all come together is Nylea's Presence. It's not a great deck in the format, but it can win. It can often be a little too slow, or its creatures can be, its powerful creatures can be too slow and sometimes even underpowered. But the deck is still very fun. I originally had Skred in the deck because I saw some lists when I was looking through the history of this deck on Goldfish that some of them had Skred, but the most recent ones don't, and so I decided to keep the snow-covered lands anyway because I think they look awesome. So, let's get into it. You'll break this deck down piece by piece. First up are the creatures, of course. You got the 1-drops, which are Wild Nicotle, 1 mana 3/3, great creature. And then you have Curdape, which became Pauper, I think, mid last year, something like that. I'm not exactly sure. Curdape is not the best, but it's certainly one of the best you have offering to you. If you could get another Wild Nicotle, it'd be great, but Curdape is the second best thing, so you're playing it. On to the 2-drop slot, you have Core Skyfisher, which is an awesome card, of course, with Abundant Growth and Nylea's Presence, because when they come in, they cantrip. And you have Squadron Hawk, because along with Rancor, you then get to draw 4 creatures that have 3 power, more or less, in the air. Also, being able to thin your deck, having less cards in your deck, is better, because the less cards in your deck means the more chances you have of drawing to your better cards. For the 3-drop slot, we have Matka Riders. I always thought it was Makta Riders. Makta Riders, basically 3 mana 5/5s. Wish they had Trample, but this is the world we live in. That's about it. And then, of course, Big Man Gurmag Angler. This card's great. I wish I could play more in this deck, but I think 2 is kind of the sweet spot. I've seen people play cards in this deck like, I've seen Exhume, I've seen Reaping the Graves in the main deck, things like that, but I'd rather just play Gurmag Anglers. On to the 1 mana spells, you have Abundant Growth, which helps you cast spells, of course. It's not actually the best thing in this deck, this one. That's the Nylea's Presence we'll get to in a little bit. But this card's great. It replaces itself, it turns a land into a Birds of Paradise type of land, it's just really, really good. Rancor, which just helps with the power level, giving your big guys Trample, of course, making Curdape a 1 mana 4/3, making this a 1 mana 5/3 with Trample, etc. You get the idea. And then, of course, Lightning Bolt. I shouldn't have to explain this card. It's 1 mana 3 damage, kills almost everything in Pauper. 3 damage to the head is quite the amount. So, that's that. On to the 2-drop slot. This is the card that makes the deck run together. God, that is a pretty picture. It replaces itself, and it says Enchanted Land is every basic land type in addition to its other types. So if you put this on a swamp, it actually becomes all 5 of the basic land types. So when you go turn 1 Wild Nicotle, if you put this on, let's say like I said, a swamp or even a plains, the plains is also a mountain, or the swamp is also a mountain and a plains. So this becomes a 3/3. This is the card that makes the deck run. It also makes this a 5/5. It also draws a card when you return it with this. It's just a great card all around. And then, of course, your Tribal Flames, which this also turns on. 2 mana for 5 damage. I have won games where all I've had to do was play this and draw all 4 of these. Granted, I don't have Snapcaster Mage like I would in Modern or Extended back then, but... or was Extended still then? I don't know. You get the point, though, I think. And then a 1 of Una's Grace just to kind of keep, refilling your hand, because eventually you're going to get to like 5 or 6 lands in play, and you're not going to need any more lands the rest of the game. On to the mana base, it's pretty straightforward. Most of your spells that you actually need to cast other spells cost green, so you're playing 8 green sources. You have 1 swamp just to fill it out. You have 2 plains because you're playing 2 different white creatures. You're playing 2 mountains because you're playing a 1 mana red creature and 2 different red spells. You have 1 island, of course, because you have the 1 of Una's Grace, and then you have 6 fetches to get your lands. You only have 20 lands in this deck. I've thought about going to 21, but I don't really think there's much of a difference. I think I was just basing it more on the luck factor, so I decided to stay to 20. So that's the main deck. These days, this is pretty much the stock list, I think. I don't really think I've changed it any different. In the sideboard, there is a 1 of Circle Protection Red, because, you know, Spike, I guess. 2 Journey to Nowhere is kind of your extra removal spells. I probably will end up going to 3 as soon as I find out what is the weakest link in the sideboard. 3 Standard Bearer, of course, gets the best white sideboard card you could have in this format, I think. 2 Hydro Blast against the red decks to act as another Protection Red, but also act as a counterspell. 3 Pyroblast to help force through your spells, like Travel Flames, Garmin Gangler, the works. 3 Electrickery against token decks, Delver Blue, everything else you could think of. And then 1 Reaping the Graves to Mize. So that is the deck list. I'm not going to waste too much more of your time. So let's just get into the test match, and we'll be right back. Thanks for watching.